All right, we're live. Silver Doctors, Wednesday, the second day of the month of October. My name is Mike, and I'm with my better half here, Mr. Paul Half Dollar. Paul, how you doing, my friend?
Doing good today, Mike. How you doing?
I'm doing excellent. It's good to be back once again. As always, there's a lot of things to talk about, and I noticed one thing that I really wanted to encourage, because as everything around us begins to unfold and more people begin to wake up to what's going on, there a lot of people, I would assume, have questions that they might want to touch on, or if we can't answer directly, just throw it out to the audience, and perhaps somebody, because I know we have a very smart audience, they can chime in via chat or call in 567-336-0844 and let us know what your thoughts are about that subject matter or whatever else. So let me start ranting real quick. Paul, any quick thoughts, and then we'll check in via chat real quick.
Yeah, that sounds good. We like the questions in the comments, so I hope we get some good questions and comments today. That'd be nice.
Definitely.
So yeah, let's welcome everybody in the chat here, Mike.
All right, we got David says what's up from New York, NYC. What else we got here? We got Marb. I'll show that whatever that code is. We got Alpine says Narco here.
NorCal.
Northern
NorCal,
California.
yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to know from him if the homeless situation is really as bad as the main, as they make it out to be.
That's a good question. But yeah, I remember over the last couple of at least a year or two myself, always connecting with people in that region, and I'm hearing more and more horror stories. And so it's interesting that the mainstream media is actually telling something that could be truthful, in a sense, because typically they hide everything else. But why are they so determined to highlight those issues there in the midst of all this political chaos where nobody seems to care from Washington D.C. area? But we got David, we got Mangatot, hi's there. We got David, we got Jess, we got Jay Silver, Jay Ward. How you guys doing from Canada, Cleveland? So we got a lot of people tuning in. So welcome to the live stream, and as always, you're more than welcome to share your thoughts via chat or give us a call, and we can get it going. So got a couple things worthy of talking about this afternoon. So Mr. Half Dollar, want to kick it off for us?
Yep. Okay, kick it off. You want to start with Trump's Twitter stuff?
Let's go right.
Or do you want to start with gold and silver?
Let's ask what the audience want. How about that? So real quick, we throw it out there. So we got some commentary on President Trump and his current situation he's in, or we got gold and silver. So via chat right now, just throw out there real quick what you guys want to kick it off with today, and we'll start with that and then go into everything else. So I'll wait to the very first response, and we'll go according to it. So let me know if anything comes up first on your end.
Okay, but that doesn't mean to do the first part and then bolt, right? Because the show gets better as it goes on.
Exactly. So as of now, I haven't seen a timely response. So I just guess we'll just leave it up to us. So I want to go to the president. So
I see Trump. So there we go. John started out with Trump. So I want to talk about 3 tweets, right? This is about the economy. This isn't Trump bashing at all. This isn't hating. This is nothing like that. This is just about the economy and how things can be seen.
Yeah.
But before I do that, I did a interview yesterday with JC Peretz.
Yeah.
And, it's interesting because I asked him, what kind of influence do you think Twitter has on the markets? And he said nothing. He said he doesn't really think that Twitter has an effect at all on the markets. But
really?
But I guess his approach is as far as him using Twitter to factor it into his trading, because we have seen tweets that come off and immediately the markets move after them.
Yeah.
But here's the first one that I want to talk about, and I'm actually going to send you this link. So I don't know if you can share this link or what, Mike. But here comes a link right here.
Okay.
You should be able to see that. This first one says, and I'm going to read it word for word. This is from this morning, from 11:19, so not even an hour ago, right? This says, all of this impeachment nonsense, which is going nowhere, is driving the stock markets and your 401ks down.
Whoa.
I know you're going to like that one. But this is exactly what Democrats want to do. They're willing to hurt the country with only the 2020 election in mind. Here's my point, Mike. Here's my point. Because people say, Trump's really just playing 4D chess and you're wrong. He's really not deep state and all this and all that. Here's my question to you. And I guess it's a rhetorical question, right? But if the stock market drives down 401ks, right? So that's bad for retirement. That's bad for savings. That's bad for pensions. You see where I'm going with this already, don't you, Mike?
Yeah.
So if if the lower stock market's bad for 401ks, how in the world are negative interest rates good for pensions, retirement plans? You know what I mean?
Savings.
Yes, savings. So it's like, this is that whole having your cake and eating it too, because, it's one or the other, right? So it's either, if a declining stock market is bad for retirement, then so is negative interest rates, right? But he's openly calling for negative interest rates. See, this is just part of the reason why I think that there's so much confusion right now about, do we have a good economy or we don't have a good economy? We haven't talked about this in a while, but remember all these like mixed signals things, right? So, he's openly saying negative interest rates good, right? We need to get like Europe. We need to get like Japan. But then he's saying, stock market decline is bad for 401ks. So it's like, oh, come on. So these are just kind of things that frustrate me, Mike. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah. So this goes into, I think once again, I gained a lot of education from listening to a lot of commentators, and I heard someone mention just recently about how President Trump, he gauges the economy based upon the stock market. And so when the equities market is doing great, the economy's booming, but when it's doing bad, then once again it's silence. And so it's only on them days typically when it rallies that do we hear our president talk about how strong of an economy we are. And then I always go back to how this is just a dog and pony show, I think, as you referenced as well, where good cop, bad cop, all in the midst of an implosion. Like we are this century, and I just thought about this century, we've had two economic woes, with this next one going to be a global economic shift of power out of the hands of the West. So they're saying anything they can now to keep the people dumbed down, distracted, because once again, this president currently it was a bubble 2 years ago. Now it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. We got the greatest economy in presidential history, according to him. All in the midst of this, back and forth from this movement. You can't listen and trust none of this stuff, because I think in the streets, really, people are starting to feel it. Like, it's no doubt now, with all the uncertainty on job security and just the nervousness in people's guts about the markets, and especially what happened with Q4 of last year when the equities market took several dips, and a lot of people, I'm sure, were not very comfortable. I believe this next quarter that we're currently entering now will also have those same type of trembling effects of what's really going on coming to the surface. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think those are great points that you make. And it's like we're coming up to this point where it's almost like stimulation overload when it comes to the news and everything that's going on, just masking the collapse that's happening in real time as you're referring to it. Because think about the impeachment. Well, that's just another thing to add on to it that just kind of like hides everything. Because, we got Iran and the Middle East and this mess over here. We got, North Korea's firing off missiles again and they're landing in somewhere in Japan's territorial waters or something. I mean, there's just we got Brexit is still a mess. We got Venezuela is still a mess. There's so much stuff going on, and we just keep adding on to it. So it's like you can't really focus on any one thing. And in the meantime, behind the scenes, yes, I think that pain is coming. And
Well, I said so. As you were describing that, the first thing came to mind of an example of what it's like. And so I remember hearing about years ago that we're currently, and I hate to keep using this, but the Titanic, and we know how that ended. But imagine being on turbulent waters. We're going left, we're going right. We got all this stuff just keeping us distracted. And what they're trying to do is just keep the ship afloat and keep it going straight, when most of the world has no clue that there's an iceberg up ahead. No matter what they do, no matter how we rock or how they try to smooth things over, eventually this thing is going to come to a halt because it's going to hit something or be hit by something. And so instead of all this talk and chatter and paying attention to the mainstream hocus pocus, focus on your actions. You see the disarray in our governmental system. We see the propping up of this, or the ending of this monetary system, just the way it was very designed, is coming to a halt because of debt saturation. So the only thing you can do is act. And the best way to act is to do the best you can to opt out of both paradigms in some form or fashion. And it starts, unfortunately, financially, of utilizing the Federal Reserve notes, because they're about to begin printing so many notes pretty soon. You got to take advantage of that and use those things to buy tangible goods that you need to sustain your life. So I apologize for interrupting.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's great, because it's just like, Mason Tricks is bringing up a great point. He says, I walked away from the mainstream media in 2012. Why tune in? I walked away. I gave up watching sports April 5th, 2005. And I gave up watching movies and television somewhere around that time too, a little bit earlier. But yeah, I mean, I can't even stomach 2 minutes of it now. And it's weird because like the longer you like cut the cord, so to say, and move on and just try and sort things out and come to your own conclusions, like the less and less you can watch of like the mainstream because you realize it's all just propaganda and smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
So yeah, and you make some good points about that. And then so there's 2 more Trump tweets I want to hit on.
Okay, send it to me.
Okay, one of them is just because I just wanted to show you, and where do I even have this? I gotta find this. And one of them is just because I wanted to show you that. Remember when I told you about Trump said he could have ended the witch hunt anytime he wanted to?
Yes.
Well, just today, he's talking about, this is the greatest witch hunt going on in history. Let me see where I can find that. And it's got like a graphic along with it and everything.
Yeah.
But I was going to send you, but anyway, I don't have those links. For some reason, I guess I closed that window. So let's just keep it rolling. But I had the link where it showed, this, I could have been the greatest witch hunt anytime I wanted to.
Yeah. So let's check in with the chat. And as always, we started off with those that are just tuning in. Want to definitely get your thoughts on subject matter. So if there's any particular subject matter that we may not be touching on, because as you guys can see, once we get started, it's hard to divert our attention to other subject matters unless you interject. And so if you guys have anything you guys want to share with us, let us know in the chat. Or as always, there's a phone line. Give us a call, and we can have you get your thoughts answered and whatnot. And so let's check in with the chat. Anything over there as of now? Because if not, we'll keep it going. It says, I'm late. What's up, everybody? We got half dollar, 1 power failure. You could lose all your cryptos. I can California buy 1,500 or more. What is a launch? Okay, here's a thought here. It says, what does the launch of the new Shanghai gold future contracts on October 14th mean for the paper and or price for physical gold and silver? Mitch, that's a good one.
It is a good one.
Let me go ahead and pull this up and definitely touch base on this. So let me see about some information with that. Paul, you have initial thoughts? Go ahead.
Yeah, so he's talking about like this marriage, right? Like this partnership between I think it's CME Group. It might be NYSE or COMEX. I'm not exactly sure who's behind it, but basically, merging Shanghai Gold Exchange futures contracts with the U.S. gold and silver futures markets. Yeah. So this is an interesting dynamic. A lot of people, myself included, are thinking that this is kind of a way to enable the paper schemes to go on just a little while longer by adding more paper derivatives into the mix, which isn't really good news for the people who think that, China and Russia are the ones that are going to bring everybody out of this with gold and silver. Yeah. But on the other hand, and this is something I thought about too. I don't know if you remember, we were talking about the Shanghai Gold Exchange closed this week. Yeah. But, with those price limits, when they open back up, it almost kind of seems like they're kind of, yes, it's going to be more paper derivatives added. So that's never a good thing. But on the other hand, it kind of looks like they're putting a floor on the price by saying, hey, we know that the markets are going to move, but we're not going to let it move more than 8% gold and 10% in silver. Yeah. So, I do find that an interesting dynamic. So on the one hand, I don't feel good about having more paper, right? And especially in U.S. markets, right? So whether it's China or not, the fact is it's more paper and it's in the U.S. But on the other hand, at least China, like in the Shanghai Gold Exchange and actually Shanghai, they're saying, well, we're not going to let it fall below this amount. Yeah. So that is an interesting, and we'll have to see how that pans out. Okay, so just thumbing through some of this, I put it up on the screen here, and so just says, there's a quote here, says, the launch of these 2 new Shanghai Gold future contracts by the CME Group marks a significant step in the internationalization of the Shanghai Gold benchmark. And so just reading that there, and this is by Wang Xingying, president of the SGE, I always thought about how the Eastern powers, predominantly China and Russia, would begin disrupting the current markets in regards to pricing. And so I think activity like this, without me even knowing it in depth, the Chinese are operating according to their long-term agenda. And what better way to, I guess, transition the world into whatever that next form of currency or global reserve status might be, other than the Shanghai Gold futures being interconnected with what we already do over here. And so I do believe that one day the Shanghai Gold futures and that whole line of institution and stuff will one day set the price one day. What do you think about that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. In the future. Yeah, I like. I think David Morgan is the one who says that he holds out that he thinks that it'll end up being a cash and carry
Mm-hmm.
operation, and I think that could actually be more likely where the just futures market isn't there at all,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
remember, the futures market, this is a modern phenomenon,
Mm-hmm.
right? This is something that's only been around for the last not even 100 years, right? It wasn't
Yeah.
at the 70s when the futures
Mid
market
70s.
started trading.
Yeah.
I think it was, I can't remember if it was 73 or 74.
I think it was
But at any
74.
rate, what is normal is not to have this futures market.
Mm-hmm.
And, the lie that everybody sold about the futures market was, producer hedging. It's so the miners can hedge and, so they're not concerned about supply and demand issues and price fluctuations. But that's not what it's used for anymore. So I'm hopeful that, yes, I think that, the China will become the dominant player in the gold market, but I'm hopeful that it's not a paper price that's setting the price anywhere, but an actual like cash and carry type price, just set on the market fluctuations.
Yeah.
Thoughts about that there?
The reason I mentioned about the intertwine and intermixture of these two institutions coming together at this point in time is that in the future, whatever time frame that is, as I always refer to, when China decides to cut on a switch and really show the world how much tonnage they're sitting on, they'll be in a much more favorable position to then determine whatever the price might be, however they choose to do it. But I would imagine to shut up all the naysayers and all the other nations, they're going to probably set the actual ounce price in the yuan at some type of astronomical amount to also account for all those trillions of points. I think $40+ trillion worth of printing they've been doing over the last decade. So if they try to back up all that debt that they brought into existence on their own by coming up with the actual gold price, it definitely has to be extremely high and favorable for them because they will have the weight. Whereas over here with Fort Knox and everywhere else we're supposed to be storing stuff, we may not have it to actually go to the table with much come negotiation time. So that's what I think this is all leading to.
Yeah, and we're just going to have to, get people to just accept on face value that we still have it, right? Yeah. So, unless push comes to shove, we're not going to show the true colors on that, I'm sure. And this is interesting, though, that you're bringing this up because, I'm referring to this interview yesterday, but, this is like, we're all going through this all together, right? Mm-hmm. So yesterday I'm talking with JC Parents, and, he was making, he says he goes 100% technical basically off of nothing more than price, but he does do the technical analysis. He's what they call a CMT, a chartered market technician, right? Some fancy certificate. But his point is that there is a technical case for $10,000 gold, right? And when we hear $10,000 gold, we hear in terms of like the global reset or the monetary reset. But he's saying, well, I don't even think about it like that. So it's interesting because what you're saying in just a technical case for $10,000 gold, these gold prices to reset all these debts, they got to be way higher. I mean, higher than a lot of people are, thinking right now.
Right. I do agree. And so what does that tell us? And it doesn't take much. It doesn't take much to really just look ahead and just assume that in the worst case scenario, it'll be hard to keep metals prices at the current nominal amount now, whether we are in papered over economic times because central banks are able to push this thing further, or if something comes apart between now and then. It'll be very hard for somebody to be willing to get rid of an ounce of something at the current price when you know it's not real because of all this derivatives and futures and all this hocus pocus behind the scenes. So what that tells me is definitely take advantage of this time to accumulate and to get your savings game up with weight. Weight at the end of the day will be the final indicator of how well you've done in this transitional period, in my opinion.
Yeah, and we can see, they're having a hard time starting yesterday, right? And gold and silver have erased all of their losses from earlier in the week. And, on top of that, the stock market fell yesterday, and the stock market's down over 500 points right now. So here's an interesting point, right? And I guess it's part of the title, right? Because the Golden Week is still going on for the rest of the week. So the question is, well, have we seen the worst of it? Is the correction over? I don't think it is, Mike. I don't think the correction's over. I think we're going to get hit on Friday, right? I don't know if you pull up my article from this morning, but it just shows this little calendar. And for like today, tomorrow, and Friday, like the economic events calendar. But one of the things that's fascinating on is Well, it actually goes through Sunday with the Fed, but there are so many speeches and so many discussions by the Fed between today. I didn't even count them, but I put little arrows between today and Friday. And then remember, on Friday, we also have the jobs reports and we have international trade data. So,
Yeah.
I don't think that we have seen the worst of it yet. And I don't think that this correction is over. Now, I hope I'm wrong, obviously, right?
Yeah.
But because then I would be right? I mean, who likes being wrong? But I hope I'm wrong in a sense that, I hope I'm not wrong in a sense that for the bulls out there, it's a good thing if the cartel is done, right? But I just don't think they are, because my question is, if they can smash, they're going to smash. And they have plenty of cover to smash. They got the morning jobs report, and then they got the afternoon Jerome Powell. And they always like to do prep work before Jerome Powell takes the stage. So, why would they let that opportunity go to waste? That's my point. And it's not fundamental analysis. It's not technical analysis. It's deep state globalist cartel analysis. Why are they going to leave this smash on the table, right? If they can smash, they're going to smash.
Yeah. Expect a smash and prepare to take advantage of it.
Yeah, I see them now. You see all those little arrows? Those are all like all those little Fed speeches.
Yeah, I'm going to try to see who's probably the most. No, John Williams also does a good job. Ain't that's the John Williams is of New York, isn't he? The Fed governor of New York. Am I correct or what? That?
Yeah, he was in San Francisco, and then he went to New York when Dudley left.
Okay, so we got Jerome Powell. That's the big showcase right there, 2 p.m. on Friday. So yeah, everyone tune in for that one. I might try to go to that meeting and talk to Jerome Powell personally and see if I can get an exclusive.
That would be great.
Oh my goodness, wouldn't that be funny? I'm waiting on one day. I mean, of course, it's all scripted and predetermined as to who can show up. But I would love to have Peter Schiff attend one of those meetings and get the microphone to ask a serious question and have Jerome Powell like that surprised look of like, he's not supposed to ask me that type of look.
Yeah.
Oh, man. All right, let's check back in the chat. We haven't gotten a phone call yet, so obviously no one wants to talk to us. But I do see a question from Paul Green. It says, what do you make of the J.P. Morgan scandal and the RICO charges? Mr. Half Dollar, what are your thoughts on that? And I'll share my thoughts.
My thoughts are they're trying to bury it. They're trying to make it like it's no big deal. It's just some traders in a racket. Yeah, they're doing the RICO, but they're trying to sweep it under the rug is what they're doing. And since it's out in the open and it's not fully swept under the rug, I think what they're doing is they're trying to make it seem like, well, we're charging these 3 traders. It's a criminal racket. They've been doing these things, but hey, it's good now. Everything's fixed. So I think that that's what's going on here. I think that, it's like on the surface, we can see that, oh, well, they're going there and they're fixing everything. So there's no more manipulation anymore. So I think that's the angle that the cartel would like to have on this. Because I don't see that, I'm not hopeful in the short term, because it's just like the government doing the right thing, right? Nobody is going to be proactive. They're going to be reactive. And, when it comes to the gold cartel, they're not going to do the right thing, right? What has to happen is the physical market has to blow up the paper market, right? That's basically what's going to happen. And in the meantime, it's just little like throwing out these little bones, to the gold bugs out there. And I think this is one of those little bones.
Yeah. I think that I put this in the same category of if true journalism exists, if politics wasn't so bought and paid for and corrupted, that when you hear little things like this, typically you're supposed to get excited in anticipation of justice being served. But living in this current environment where everything is one big scandal, everything is one big lie, and so I don't really think when I see stuff like this, I don't even get excited, like thinking that something's going to be done. Like there's going to be some true justice served where these institutions will be held accountable for their actions. And so what's alarming is that every now and then there's a sniff of something that could be positive. Last thing that we had was the Epstein situation. I haven't heard nothing about it since. It got a lot of people excited in the alternative media primarily about, could this be it? And then what I don't like is the people that talk about the good guy, bad guy behind the scenes. Like the good guys are winning. What good guys? Ain't nobody got put in jail yet. No indictments, no nothing publicly to expose anybody for how much of a fraud of a system this is. So I don't really believe that good guy, bad guy narrative of there's good politicians that are still behind the scenes. My personal opinion is if you got to that level of power, then you definitely were put there or allowed to get there because you compromised yourself in some way. So I don't think of it like a good politician, because if there's anybody that posed a real threat to the establishment, they would have been booted a long time ago, or something bad probably would have happened to them. So I don't buy into it. So it sounds good, but until you see some actual prosecutions of some kind that really matter, pay it no mind.
Yeah, that's well said. And just at the very fundamental level, you know, what is a politician? It's somebody who wants to tell other people what they can and can't do, right? There's something inherently wrong with that person, right? And we definitely don't want them doing that all of their life, So
a lifelong political figure. That's a lifelong. Go ahead.
Yeah, and if you think about like the like you're talking, what's coming out of it, they're not going to do anything. They're compromised. Also, think about it this way, and use the national debt as an example. The debt just keeps growing and growing and growing and growing and growing and growing and growing. So when are they ever going to deal with it?
Here's the thing.
When it's
how can you? Like you said, how can you? What can you do? And it's just for those that know, everyone that's watching, everyone that probably will watch this, the only reason you tune into things like this because something's not right. So you ultimately know there's nothing they can do. The only way they can keep this thing going is to continue to let it go up. Yeah. Never be held accountable and never let it collapse on your watch is what you don't want. So what do? You kick the can a little bit further, and probably a little bit harder. Yeah. And so, I think all the things we're starting to see now, everything seems to be intensified. There's a lot of political chaos, monetary, fiscal, globally. So everybody on this planet is having issues. So it's becoming harder to hide the narrative of everything is going fine. Because once again, people are starting to feel it now, which lets me know that we're drawing closer to the need for a restructuring, a reset, a collapse, or whatever. And so, unfortunately, it's going to be very unpleasant. But with all this talk we're doing now, everyone has a chance to be aware and prepare some way or some fashion, even though we don't know how bad it's going to get. But you have an opportunity to use your next single dollar to put it to your use to benefit your future of some kind. So.
Yeah, and I think that people who survive it will be able to thrive, right? If they were smart enough to anticipate this and be on the right side of it before it happens. Because we know the crisis has happened because that's what is coming, right? Because they're not going to address the debt until it's a crisis. And then at that point, it's just going to be a scrap for their own very survival.
Yeah. Here's another good question. Somebody Pabara put out there, and he said, but how did Ron Paul make it to the upper echelon? He keeps it real. And so I personally believe that it'd be hard to not have at least one or two people in that position and let them voice their opinion, just so you'll always have some rattling back and forth. If everybody was all going in the same direction with no naysayers, nobody that was in opposition, then it'd be real hard to really keep the narrative going. So you always got to have that person that might be truthful in heart, but one person, unfortunately, can't get anything done because it takes several hundred other political figures to vote along with you. So Ron Paul, I don't even know, probably threw out all types of legislative bills that he wanted to enact. But yet, once again, how many went through? Because everybody else, it takes an entire team to win a game. When you only got one person that's a captain that's trying to do good and the other 9 trying to sabotage the team, you're not going to get no real wins.
And when he came up in politics too, right? This is pre-internet, right? So now think about Tulsi Gabbard, right? Yeah. What kind of coverage does she get? Yeah. I wouldn't go so far as to call her the modern day Ron Paul, because I don't think she is. But as far as like her anti-war stance, her, the problem is Washington, D.C., but she's getting that blacklist treatment. Right. So, I think that the Ron Paul thing has a lot to do with the fact that there was still a sense of honesty back then because things still weren't as bad as they are now. Right. We were just going off the gold standard. Right. As opposed to, 48 years later. Right. So, and then with the modern internet and, just smear tactics, what do they call it? Opposition research is what they call it for like when they dig up dirt on the politicians and the candidates and stuff like that. Yeah. So, yeah, man, it's going to, and, he's an old dude and he's a true fighter. So that's going to be a sad one when he goes. But,
And I think, his son, Rand Paul, he attempts to follow in his father's footsteps. But once again, he might be that last notable apple that might resemble having a good outer coating, but it's only so long you can be in that boys club before eventually you have to compromise in some form or fashion. If not, you won't be reelected. And that's my biggest thing. If you were one to tell the truth about how you need to cut back and we need to spend less, we need to dial back in this program and this and that, whatever, you're going to be painted as a villain. So you got to say yay instead of nay when it comes time to vote. So, yeah, it's unfortunate, but that's where we're at now. And so we're getting back to the point where in order to see real change, you won't see it at a systemic global level as of now until there's a reset. So you have to be that change you want to see in the world. That Muhammad Gandhi quote. You got to enact your own change. And no, it starts with taking ownership for your own responsibilities for your lives by getting educated and then acting on the education you receive. And so right now we're at a point where we see the chaos happening all around us. What are you going to do about it? Like, what are you personally going to do about it? And Paul, let me share something with you. So we've been talking about this type of news for quite some time. I've been covering this stuff for several years now, and over time, it can become very heavy to bear because you're always talking about doom and gloom, and it's just reality. And so I'm thinking, like, how can you really enjoy this time? Because outside of what we know is occurring and coming, how can you really begin enjoying and taking advantage of this time where things seem to be somewhat normal? And I'm like, I really need to spend more time doing things that I genuinely enjoy, like spending time with my family, spending time with the kid. I mean, just stuff that we get away from because you can get really consumed in all this news and it not really be helpful for your health or your mentality. So I don't know why I felt led to mention that, but just enjoy this time before things go haywire completely. So
yeah, and if for some reason that family's away on vacation and you got the house all to yourself for a week or whatever it is, don't work on skills, right? Don't focusers, because yes, you're absolutely right. Because, we know that before things get better, they're going to get worse and they're going to get a lot worse. And I mean, I've gone through several stages of that myself, and sometimes it gets to me, sometimes it doesn't. But now it's funny because ever since we started doing these live shows, I don't know, these are almost in and of themselves therapeutic because, the point is, I'm not going to try and come on here and just be all negative because, they just hit silver for $1, right? So it's, and then the other thing is, I didn't place a single trade all year, so I don't have any kind of emotional tie to the price other than, I'm a bull and ultimately I'm wanting price to go up. And I'm happy that people can stack more at lower prices. Yeah. But yeah, so, you can't let these little things get to you because they will. It's like, 1,000 little cuts there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I play devil's advocate here for a minute, Mike?
Go ahead. It's always welcome, my friend. Go ahead.
I put this out. I didn't want to put this out because people think that I'm a Trump hater, and I'm not. I don't know why I have to keep saying that, but I really am not.
Yeah.
But I put this article out, this opinion, and I started thinking, does Trump say that we have the best economy ever?
He touts it every 72 hours, 48 hours. There's a tweet just saying how good a tweet or a public statement. Yes.
Yep. We've basically defeated ISIS, right? Mm-hmm. We basically got record high stock market, right? Mm-hmm. We got what else do we have? Oh, we got like booming jobs and a booming GDP. We got all of this. We got the swamp is being drained, right? He got rid of Bolton. Yeah. So here's my point, right? Here's my point. Think about this. If President, and this is devil's advocate, right? If President Trump resigns over this impeachment thing, he goes out on top, doesn't he?
He goes out on top regardless because he took the job not needing it and touting the fact that I'm just trying to do this for the American public. I'm trying to do this for American people. He's going to leave richer than no matter what, whether he get impeached, whatever. If he steps out and becomes another public servant again, another regular citizen, he's stepping back into billions. So he's fine. So that's why I'm like, I don't believe this guy. Anyway, go ahead.
But as far as the legacy, if the stock market crashes, if we enter a nasty recession, if in building the wall, that's the other thing he's getting credit for. So if the economy, job losses start mounting up, the economy goes down, we enter recession, stock market goes down, right? Then he gets the blame. That's my point, right? Yeah. So I just wanted to throw that out there because this whole impeachment thing, it got me thinking, because I do think that he's the fall guy. But on the other hand, if he were to resign over something like this, wow, that would be totally unexpected. And it would totally be a shock to kind of like, it'd be that spark needed to push America to this kind of like where we just devour ourselves from within, right? Which I think is part of the deep state globalist plan. So it fits in perfectly with that.
Yeah. Now, let me share something with you. So I watched the Greg Hunter interview with Gerald Celente, And so, just hearing his little analysis there, it got me to thinking about what's possibly playing out here. So I'm gonna throw out a possible scenario what I think could be in the works. Not sure, but
Okay,
yeah,
I didn't hear that interview yet, though, so I don't know.
It's good because Gerald Senator is always fired up. He's on point with his, but yet he gets me to thinking. So with this whole impeachment process, it's kind of spurred on by the whole Biden situation. So Biden's going to be called out even more so. His family's name is going to be tarnished a little bit. His stance is that the establishment or whoever, whatever, they're intentionally throwing Biden in the mix and going to highlight it more so that he'll either drop out, be exposed, and not be fit to run. And then it'll leave us with one of the other people, which might get momentum. Warren might get a little bit more momentum, and then or the Harris young lady. And then if that don't work, his thing is who else is left. And I'm thinking like I'm starting to see Hillary Clinton do a little bit more public presentation these days. I'm wondering, because if it gets to the point where it's a complete desperation, and the current candidates are really looking like there's no way they can try to derail this. This last interview that I think it was on Sunday she did with her daughter, she was talking about how Trump thinks about her a lot and Trump. I'm thinking like he ran against the fact he was going to expose her. It's been 2.5 years. He has yet to do anything other than go to a dinner and mention how much of a fine family they are. I'm thinking like, is what happened between running against her, calling her out, now nothing having been done to her or the foundation, to my knowledge. So she basically has a clean slate, and she can gain momentum if everybody else's fails, and use that as like, we won't win the second round, even though you cheated the first time. And Clinton could somehow be worked back into the equation in a worst case dire situation. What do you think?
I don't know. I think that I don't think so. I think that
okay.
She's just too old and that the image is just too tarnished. I think it's going to be Elizabeth Warren. That's what I think it is.
Yeah.
Because I think we're right for a woman because they've been looking for a woman all this time. Hillary was just too toxic, right?
Yeah.
And then the other thing, like, because I think about Germany and the UK, right? With this whole migrant crisis in Europe and in Germany and all this crazy stuff that's going on in Germany, who do they have that's softening that blow? Angela Merkel. When you think about Brexit and all this stall tactic and all this and all that, who do they have in there? Theresa May, right? So, Elizabeth Warren, when the economy is collapsing, when we're on the brink of civil war, when, there's just economic collapse and all this nasty stuff is going on in the United States, they got someone that looks like that sweet aunt you have that, is kind of trying to hold things together and don't go too bad because, so I think that it's going to be Warren here.
Okay.
Because I think you're right about the Biden thing.
Yeah.
And then just this morning, I'm talking about Bernie Sanders is having like some kind of like artery blockage removal or something like that. So,
yeah. Okay. So I do agree that that's what would be preferred. Apart from a worst case, emergency situation might be that person I mentioned. But best case scenario, get Biden out the way. Bernie's too old for real. Elizabeth Warren, she's young, vibrant, and the whole feminine movement that's been going on for the last couple of decades. Okay, sure. Now I'm thinking like, we know what happened, or maybe not, but what's happening currently in Argentina. So Argentina has a presidential election that's like end of this month, beginning of November. They're gonna select a new administration in general. And it's literally a socialist party. Like that's the wave of what's coming. And so as a response to that, the Argentinian markets tanked. But they knew that the only thing that party was going to do was more debt, more printing. It's going to ruin the economy. Could that possibly happen here if things hit the worst case scenario where Elizabeth Warren does become primary leader and potentially the president? We already see articles about Mark Zuckerberg being caught mentioning about how much he despises her because she's going to try to disrupt and break up everything, big government, big institution, more taxation, more socialist type of policies. Could that also be a reason why investors and people in general just say, hey, the U.S. now has gone full USSA. Let's, jump ship or move away from this policy because it's going to be more debt, more government, more this, more that, more free stuff, which is basically a nail in the coffin for the dollar and the economy in general. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that that's definitely the case. And, none of this stuff is priced in, right? So far, everything is priced in that President Trump's just a shoe-in. So, I think that is totally possible. And because, and to like get to it specifically, some of the stuff, they're going to be like looking for new types of taxations on Wall Street, right? New types of taxations on capital gains with these types of investments, right? That's what they're going to be going after this time around. So, to help out the little person, because think about this too, right? Something like only 50% of America owns any stocks at all. So, it's not really, that everybody's got all of their money in the stock market. That's not really how it is. So if you want to help the most people, and then if they do, it's not like they got, $1 million brokerage accounts, right? So if you want to help the most people, and if you want to redistribute that wealth, then you start attacking stuff like that with Wall Street.
Yeah.
So, I think that we could see some really quick, violent pricing in of a potential Warren, rising in the polls there.
Yeah. Now, what's for sure baked into the cake as a matter of default is helicopter money, because that's going to supposedly help ease the pain amongst the middle class and the average consumer that's tapped out. So helicopter money is for sure. And then you're going to have, as you mentioned, the new creation of different ways of taxing. And then expect to see some type of new Green Deal. And so the fiscal side of things is really going to be pushed. Now, more fiscal spending, which will take the attention off the Federal Reserve, just outright QE 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to infinity. So expect greater deficits, more promises. And me personally, I kind of expect that to come. So I'm not necessarily sad that I know it's coming. I'm like, okay, how can I utilize that extra liquidity that's going to be pumped out there to get physical? So I'm like actually looking forward to it, because I know it's a part of the process of things coming to an end. So I'm no longer like against or mad at the system, because I know this is where it got to go. It's the last ditch efforts to save this before it has to be revamped or rebranded somehow.
Yeah. But who's going to buy all that debt, right? I mean, that's the other question, because Nobody will. So that means it's going to be straight up debt monetization.
That's all you can do. That's all you can do.
Anecdotally, I've been talking with these people that retired in the 90s, and I didn't get into a whole lot of specifics, but they're taking a vacation, and the plane tickets are $1,100 each. Remember, I think plane tickets are ultimately going to $10,000 each when this hyperinflation kicks in. But that's what it's going to feel like. But, so because the government understates inflation, right, they haven't had these cost of living adjustments keeping up with it. So when I take a vacation, it's just whatever it costs, right? I mean, if the plane ticket costs $1,100, well, that's what it costs, right? If I go to a day trip to the amusement park, it costs $1,000 for my family, well, that's what it costs. I mean, if you can afford to do those things, you pay what it costs. But now it's coming to the fact that we're really starting to see this squeeze anecdotally, where, after this inflation has been suppressed in the official statistics for so long that people who retired 20 years ago, they're no longer able to keep up with it because prices are just getting away from them. So it's only going to get even that much worse. So this helicopter money, it might help initially, but all it's going to do is just add that fuel to that fire. But I do agree with you, because they will go to that before we go back to gold and silver.
Right. I do agree. Now, so we do have a couple highlighted questions in here that I've been putting off. So low blood pressure says, what's the first thing you guys would do after the collapse? And so when I read that, the first thing, of course, this is all just, who really knows the severity of this collapse and readjustment and rebranding. But the very first thing for me is, safety. Make sure everybody I know in my immediate family is okay and good and understand what's going on as best as I can, and as well. But then also think about how to get involved as far as being of assistance to people, because it's sad to say overwhelming majority of the population will have no clue as to what's going on. So it won't take much to actually help guide people and steer people in a direction. Granted, they need help or want help if it's some type of contained event or whatever. But yet, how can I be of service to people? Like for me, it's an opportunity to be of service, because I already knew something of this nature was coming. So basically, I think I'll have opportunity to be able to help out a lot of people. So that's one thing I look forward to being able to do as time moves forward. How about you?
I think that's a great way to look at it there, Mike. I like to think of it too as, it's not just like you're moving along in your life and then something happens and then all of a sudden it's just a fork in the road and it's completely different. Because I would like to think that, I try and, build up my skill set and do some of the things now that I would do after the collapse, the first thing that I would do after the collapse. Now, depending how severe it is, right? One of the things that I look at is, when we talk about this sometimes, is just my interest in computers and networking and cybersecurity and computer repairs and stuff like this. So that's how I'd be looking to help people out, right? Because, this is something that people are going to need, assuming, peak oil hasn't peaked and we're not, driving around our cars like Fred Flintstone style. Yeah. But other thing that I'm going to do, and see, this isn't something that I'm doing after the collapse, but something that I'm doing now that would get stepped up after the collapse is gardening. As cheesy as that sounds, right? Working on those tomatoes and those cucumbers and those jalapeno peppers and stuff like that. Your small, local, in your yard kind of garden. That's one of those things that you can do now so that when you really need to up that after the collapse, you can. And, I just think about all these, like, people spend so much money on all this fancy organic stuff. What's going to happen when the economic collapse? You're not going to be able to afford to buy that stuff in the, grocery stores. And then are you even going to be really able to afford just the normal type of produce? So we need to have these kind of things in place beforehand, right? And this is assuming that it gets bad, but I do think it's going to get this bad. So I think that, after the collapse, you just kind of assess where you are, because that's the other thing too, right? It's not like a building collapse. It's like, a rolling collapse, if I could call it that.
Yeah, I do agree with you on that one. And so I'm seeing more people. So let's touch on this upcoming Friday. You mentioned a lot of things, a lot of meetings happening. And so are you still sticking to that? I think it was 1625 or... worst case scenario, 1625. You still sticking to that or what? Or
yeah, that's worst case scenario, because I don't think the cartel can go much lower than that. And that was off of that 1750. So I don't know exactly where silver closed in Shanghai on Monday. So I don't know what the exact price was, but it's 10% from that price is the worst case scenario. And it's actually like, I think 1525.
Yeah. So
do we have a call?
We do have a call. So let's see if we can get this on. I apologize for that. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from?
How you doing, guys?
I'm doing good. What's on your mind this afternoon?
I wanted to wait. You guys were talking about who they might try to promote as presidential candidate.
All right.
And I think the timing is just impeccable with how their own party right now is, the way I look at it, they're cannibalizing creepy Uncle Joey right now. They're throwing him out. That's their way of doing it.
Yeah, Sleepy Joe.
Well in advance. And I don't see Elizabeth Warren going anywhere. I'm an Indian, my ancestry. Elizabeth Warren, I don't see that. I see them taking somebody like one of the Radical Four, and then maybe 6 months prior, getting somebody on board that's just as radical but doesn't portray the radicalness as much as them, because things are just going to get ugly.
Yeah.
And they're going to do whatever it takes.
Right. Well, I do agree.
Keep that power.
Yeah, I agree, my friend. Thanks for calling in and sharing that.
Guys, love your program. Have a good one, all right?
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thanks for that call. That was a good call. That's an interesting point that he's bringing up. I think, yeah, sure, they could be, they are throwing Joe Biden under the bus, literally. But then again, he's also super old, right? So it's not like he's got a lot of bus driving left in him anyway. But here's the thing I want people to think about, right? When I come back to this Warren thing, because this is, and I didn't talk about this, but this is another reason why I think it could be her. Well, first of all, she's establishment, right? She's one of the most establishment there is, right? Other than these Yang and all these other people, they're not really a deep state globalist establishment enough. Elizabeth Warren is. But here's the other thing. You remember back in 2015, and it's funny because in 2015, I said Trump was going to win before he was even an actual candidate announced. But in 2015, President Obama at the time was giving a speech somewhere, and he was like, and he was holding up his phone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he was like reading off, he was like, what is this? I'm going to come and run for election. My name is Real Donald Trump. Real Donald Trump? Who is that? And he held up his microphone like this and did a mic drop on it and like walked off the stage. Do you remember that?
I didn't see it live, but I did see all types of clips about that, yes.
But here's the thing about that, right? What was he doing? He was making fun of soon to be candidate Trump, right?
Yeah.
And that's the same exact way that President Trump is making fun of Elizabeth Warren. So I just like to throw that out there too, right?
Okay.
I wouldn't discount Elizabeth Warren just yet, because that making fun of her just helps feed that fire. The same way that everybody making fun of President Trump helped feed his fire to get elected.
Yeah.
I would not discount that.
I wouldn't either. So I like how you laid that out for us. That's definitely a good one.
One more thing before we move on to other questions. So I got to say this or I'm going to forget.
Go ahead.
Capitulation, right? Capitulation is giving up, right?
Yeah.
So when we talk about, we're not ready to start a bull market until the last of the bears, or we're not ready to start a new bull market until the last of the bulls capitulate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Until they say that, well, this is it. I'm done. I'm throwing in the towel. And then prices can go up.
Yeah.
On the same token, we're not ready to start a bear market in stocks, right? Until the last of the stock bulls capitulate and they say, okay, this is it. I'm done. I give up here. And then the bear market starts. But here's my point, right? My point is, because this JC guy, he's really like super uber bull. Mm-hmm. And he's talking about, if the Dow stays above 27,000, I'm super bullish here. There's no reason that, 2015 to 2017 was nothing more than a correction over time. And we're ready for our next up leg in the stock market. So he's like this Martin Armstrong, 30,000, 35,000, Dow's going up forever. Yeah. But he said if the Dow stays above 27,000, we're under 26,000 right now. That interview was just yesterday. So the Dow's already dropped 1,000 points since we gave that interview just yesterday. So here's my point. You're at the point right now where the last of these stock market guys that are thinking that it's going up, they're about ready to throw in that towel, right? Yeah. They're about ready to throw in that towel. Or the stock market bears, right? The last of the stock market bears, I guess is what I'm going to say. Actually, I don't even know what I'm trying to say because I'm throwing it off on the fly. But my point is, these guys that are super bullish, they're about to start turning really super bearish because all these levels and all these targets that they're looking at, they're not holding, right? Mm-hmm. And they're thinking that we've already had the bear market already. But, I think that they're going to be in for a rude awakening because, they will be changing their tune and they will be turning bearish here pretty soon. I don't even know if that made sense. Does any of that make sense at all?
It does. And so it does. And so I think I realized maybe 2 years ago, just watching as things unfolded, that what has been considered investing, like from a practical standpoint for decades, maybe even centuries, of putting something aside in healthy environments and anticipating it growing, and then expecting and utilizing compound interest to take it on and let it grow. Those days have been changed drastically since the last recession because of, no one included the fact that monetary policy would become the primary driver of markets. So now when it comes to investing, unless you know what you're doing and you're in things that you believe in, you've taken a risk upon yourself. So bull, bear, is one of the things where if you can't hold it, you don't own it. So I'm thinking one of the things of, I personally don't really pay much attention to it because I'm not anticipating any type of savings to grow in those environments in the days ahead. But we have a call. Hello, caller. What's your name? What's your name? Where you calling from?
Yes, it's low blood pressure, Corpus Christi, Texas. How you guys doing today?
I'm doing good. Low blood pressure. How you doing, my friend? What's on your mind?
Good. I just wanted to talk about the strong dollar. Everybody's saying, Trump, Mnuchin, the whole cartel saying we need a weak dollar. We need a weak dollar. The dollar's too strong. I don't think they really have control like they think they do. The whole world, I think, is running to the dollar. They're trying to devalue, print, and everybody talks about the manipulation. I think there's manipulation, but I don't think it's just, I think the market is Superman, and they're sitting there trying to be Clark Kent or something, 'cause I don't think they have as much influence as they think they do. What do you guys think about that?
Whew, low blood pressure. That's a good one. Paul, what's your thoughts?
I think I wouldn't agree with that. I wouldn't agree with that,
Okay,
Mike.
go
So,
ahead. Lay it out there.
because the Exchange Stabilization Fund on Treasury.gov says right there that they can intervene in the gold, foreign currency markets, right? They seeded that money from the gold confiscation in 1934, and then it was born out of the Gold Reserve Act, the Exchange Stabilization Fund. So, I think that they can dial it in, and I think they do have that kind of control. They can just flood the world with dollars, right? They can flood the world with dollars. They can buy up other currencies and hold them and strengthen other currencies in relation to it. I mean, there's a number of things that can be done, right? So I think that they do have their hands on those levers, and I think that they're able to maintain them right now with some sort of sense of steering it.
Yeah, good one.
What do you think about that low blood pressure?
He might be below behind in the feed, but Paul shared his thoughts on that. And so, low blood pressure. Any other thoughts you want to share with us? Hello?
Maybe he cut out.
Maybe he's gone. Yep.
Oh, Mike, I can't hear Paul. I can just hear you when you say yes and
Oh, I apologize. So you didn't hear Paul give his speech. But Paul disagrees. He laid out a good dissertation as to why that is. So I'd encourage you to watch it back because I couldn't repeat it all verbatim. But he disagrees and thinks that this Exchange Stabilization Fund has the ability to basically keep this thing going a lot longer, according to what he laid out. So I'll let you go back and watch the replay on that one. All right. But I appreciate you.
Guys, have a good one.
All right, have a good one.
Okay, all right.
And the other thing is, when you hear like Mark Carney, right, at Jackson Hole, Wyoming, saying we need to move away from the dollar. When you hear Russia and China saying we need to move away from the dollar, right? When you see other countries selling oil and things other than dollars, right? There's a lot of things that tell us that, because I think it's an illusion of the whole strong dollar thing, right? Yeah. In the sense that, when it comes down to it, other countries, sure, like in Venezuela, they're pushing those dollars in them, so they want those dollars, right? But when it comes to people coming into the dollar as a safe haven, I don't know. I just think that's an illusion, and they're going to find out that they're going to get bit by going into the dollar.
Yeah, I agree. And so I remember, especially in Argentina, like hearing about stories of how people stash wads of dollars in walls, and that's always been their safe haven asset because A, is liquid and it's recognizable all over the planet. And so that's still good for the next couple of years or so. But I believe that once this QE process is exposed, as this repo situation turns into much more, then people are going to realize that, hey, if they're just going to be printing billions upon billions every day or every month, then should I really be saving these in my walls and for my future when the United States citizens themselves don't even respect them things? You know what I'm saying? So I think at that point, more people will probably turn into metals, and that's going to be very good for metals prices. But it's one of them things where if you outside this country, if you're having issues with your national currency and you're running to dollars, where will you run next? And here in this country, if we're having problems or lack of confidence in a dollar, where do we run? We should automatically run to AKA real sound money that has been historically proven to be valid and to be acceptable and exchangeable and recognizable all over the planet.
Have you heard me talk about like my sea turtle theory there, Mike?
Sea turtle. I don't think so. Share with us.
Like those little sea turtles, right? And they hatch on the beach, right? But they just know how to get to the ocean. You know what I mean? Like how would you know how to get to the ocean? You just came out of an eggshell, But they know, right? So I think that humans, after thousands and thousands of years, I think that we instinctively know about gold and silver. I think that the knowledge is severely suppressed and repressed right now, right? So like you said, MMT's coming. They're going to try and push us digital with electronically encrypted, unbacked fiat again. But just instinctively, that gene is there. And all that's got to happen is that switch has got to be flipped. And as soon as they flip that switch, oh, man, because as soon as that sea turtle gets to the ocean, that's it. It's on to the wild, right? So once that gene for gold and silver comes back on and gets flipped, it's dormant right now, right? But it's like you said, where are you going to go after the dollar? That's when that switch gets flipped.
Yeah, I do agree. Well, Paul, we are approaching an hour. And so about time to get ready to dial back. And as always, it's been great having everybody hang out with us. Not sure how many people are tuned in totally. But for those that have been enjoying the back and forth, don't be afraid to donate a thumbs up to the channel, either in the chat but preferably beneath this video with hitting that button to the, what side are we looking this way? You're probably over here. I think it's probably over there. And just hit that little thumbs up button, show your support for the channel. We appreciate it. And if you found anything informative, feel free to share this with your family and friends, because once again, if you're watching this, you're part of the 1% club of people who know what's going on and what's coming, but you got 99% of the rest of the population have no clue. And I think we've gone past the point of conspiracy theories. Oh, the conspiracy. No, just look around. See what they're doing to. Look at the state of our country. Look at all the homeless people in this country and tell me that monetary policy and fiscal policy isn't the reason behind it. And so people are starting to feel it. So now I think the whole narrative of being a conspiracy theorist is kind of outdated now. So we're about telling truth and sharing our opinions via information we gather. So with that being the case, I'm ranting again. I apologize. It's been great hanging out. Paul, any last thoughts you want to leave us with?
No, just it looks like we're out of the clear. I don't think we're out of the clear just yet, because I don't think the cartel is going to leave an opportunity to smash on the table. Yeah. And they have an opportunity on Friday. So it'll be fun either way to watch the charts through the rest of the week.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will see, and we'll be back later on. Other than that, enjoy the rest of your day and stay safe. Peace.